Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the Soulful Sound Part 1. Now, Part 2, are you ready? Do you want to hear? Part 2, are you ready? Do you want to hear? Part 2, are you ready? Do you want to hear? Part 2, are you ready? Do you want to hear?
This is woman to my mother. Before I was born.
Let's talk icons. First of all, thanks for having me. It's not that often that I get to do an entire presentation about icons. As a designer, I love icons, and you'll hear me saying that a lot today. My name is Michael, and I am 29 years old. And I thought I'd start out with a short presentation about myself, because I think it's kind of nice to know who's actually talking. So we'll run through a few slides, and I'll try to give you an idea of what I spend my days on. And so before launching into this whole talk about icons, I'll just try to give a sense of what I actually do. My Twitter handle is Flarup, I believe the Americans pronounce it. You guys probably have an easier time pronouncing. I'm Danish. It's Flarup. Yeah, I find it increasingly more difficult to put a label on what exactly it is that I do. You guys might have stumbled upon that same issue, trying to figure out what is your title. A lot of people out there, when they ask you what you do, is very interested in what your title is. I am a designer in the sense that I like to make things pretty. But today I have so many other roles that I just go with I make things. I do a lot of different stuff. I have a small one-man design studio called Pixel Resort, which is kind of like my own little thing where I freelance and I work with clients from around the world, and I get to do awesome projects. And it's just me, really. And I've been doing that for quite a lot of years now. I'm not going to talk too much about that today. I've co-founded a company called Robocat, which is, again, increasingly hard to put a label on what exactly it is we do. We used to be software guys. Today we also work with hardware, and we do a lot of other different stuff. But let's just say that we build products. I was one of those kids that was told in class that, stop drawing and pay attention, because drawing will never take you anywhere. It's not really a marketable skill. Listen up and do your math. I've made a lot of icons over the years. This particular icon has a great affectional value to me, because it is the icon for the first app we put out as Robocat. So this was our first app. It was called Outside, and we worked on it for 8 months. And when we launched it in the Christmas of 2008, we got 30,000 paying customers. We got worldwide tech coverage, and we even got joked about on Jay Leno. So it was a pretty amazing time for 2 guys from Copenhagen. So this icon is for another weather app we make. I know, weather apps. We make other things as well, but we've made quite a few weather apps. It's called Thermo, and it has almost 4 million users today. Making icons is fun. To me, it's just about the funniest part of the project, really. And you get to really play around. I've made icons for games like these, where you really get to flex your painterly creative side. Another game that we made. And more simplistic icons like this one, where you need to carefully consider every shape, every color, every gradient. Icons, whether they're simplistic or detailed, is this tiny little gem, really. It's a concentrated little piece of design. And some are classic and some are a little wacky. But all of them have this magical property, this level playing field of grasping users' attention on just the same canvas, the same limited amount of space. And I love making icons. To me, it's such a wonderful design discipline. You want to convey an idea, and you need to do it in this wonderfully constrained canvas. There's just something really appealing about that process, a challenge, and the answer is always within those same pixels. I think I must have made more than 1,000 app icons by now, both for our own projects and for clients around the world. And sometimes I even just make them for fun, like this one, from a project I call App Icon Wars. Just to play around with those constraints, see how that works. Explore them and see what's possible, and even the silly part of it. As a designer, I obviously work on a lot of other stuff too. I don't get to sit around all day and make icons. I think it's hard to be an icon designer without working with interfaces or the other way around. And I've worked on a lot of interfaces as well. Games, particularly. I'm a big fan of making games. Games is a fun discipline. So just to give you sort of an overview of my creative time and attention, it's divided into these three different areas. RoboCAD is obviously a huge part of my life because we have an office and sometimes they expect me to be there. And I have employees. I do get to freelance sometimes as well. It keeps it really interesting. I also have other projects right now down here. Quite a lot of stuff in here. I think my girlfriend believes she's in here as well. But I work on a lot of other stuff. That's just a short presentation about me. Let's get down to business. What is an icon? If you look it up, it says something like this. A thing regarded as a representative symbol of something. That's a bit vague. Let's see if we can narrow that down a bit. So let's start out by this one. Oh yeah. So anyone know what this icon represents? Come on, that's easy, right?
Toilets, men.
Toilets, yes. We all agree this is toilets, right? There's no toilet though in the icon, right? So how do we know that it's a toilet? If you've never seen any icon before in your life, just come out of the Amazonian jungle and you're shown this sign and you have to pee really bad. Would you go there? No. This is a man and a woman, you know. You have learned through convention that this means toilet. It's an abstraction. It's not showing you the physical form. There's no toilet in there, but you've learned its meaning through use. That's what we call an ideogram. It's an abstract idea that you've learned through convention. Let's go with another one. This one. It's quite uncommon actually, and that just serves our point even better. Anyone care to guess what this icon means?
No dogs allowed.
No dogs allowed. There's a dog in it. It has a stroke over it. So there's literally a dog in this icon. This is what we call a pictogram. It's a pictorial sort of depiction of the actual thing you want to communicate. It's a representation of the actual object. So this distinction between ideogram and pictogram isn't necessarily very useful in the computer age because, as you'll see later, most of these things today is actually ideograms because it's very abstract stuff that we're trying to communicate. But I think it's quite nice to know the difference between these two things. So you can use it and you can sound really smart when you talk to other designers. So this idea of representing things with pictures is that's pretty cool. Is that something we invented in the computer age? Is that something that came in with computers? Guesses? No, really. We've been drawing pictures for a long time, and we've been telling stories with pictures and conveying meaning through pictures for a very, very long time. Hieroglyphs is what we call a logogram. It's a pictorial alphabet. And petroglyphs is pictures carved in stone. So, I mean, humans have really been, conveying meaning through pictures in a long time. This graph here is a graph I got on Google. And what you see is the frequency of the word icon used in books. And now, to be fair, I'm pretty sure that Google indexes more books from this century here. But it does show that around the mid around the 70s, beginning of 80s, it completely explodes. The icon is used everywhere. So while we just established that icons have been used for a long time, might not have called it icons. Now we're talking a lot about icons, as you can see. It's in all the books. Why is that? This is just around the time that personal computers and the graphical interface sort of becomes a bit more mainstream. So icons are really icons are everywhere today, and they transcend language barriers. I mean, if I didn't show you this part, I'm not sure how many of you are fluent in Chinese or can read Chinese, which is two completely different things. You wouldn't know what this was, but you do because you know the toilet icon. So it transcends barriers of language. And they can communicate really advanced concepts. You know this one, right? So you push the button, and then you receive bacon. Okay, so they can also be a little misleading maybe sometimes. So we use icons to convey abstract directions. We even have Swedish icons. But increasingly more relevant for this talk, we use icons in our interfaces. We use them as visual anchors, and we use them to ease our understanding of abstract concepts. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure that the caveman would be fairly confused today by all these abstract little pictures that we litter all over the place. Most importantly for this talk, obviously, they're on your phone. The introduction of smartphones, a completely new wave of icons flushed in over us. Don't get me wrong, application icons, as we'll be talking a lot about today, has been around for a long time. But with the popularization of the App Store and this whole ecosystem that lives on our smartphones, these new pieces of design that has been introduced really has gotten a lot of power, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But let's just get one thing out of the way. Icons are not logos. Now, I see a lot of people get this wrong, mostly clients actually. And I even wrote a lengthy article on it on Pixel Resort a few years back. While icons, particularly app icons, they can take on logo-like qualities, like being a piece of branding. It's important to understand that they are distinctively different design disciplines. Icons in the computer age are most commonly representations within a squared canvas. It is they're meant to be viewed at specific sizes. Sometimes they're meant to be viewed at multiple sizes, and you need to sort of customize each size. So they're within this confined canvas. More commonly, logos are not under the same constraints. Logos should probably be completely scalable. As a designer, when you deliver a logo, you deliver vector files often, and you want it to work on a billboard, and you want it to work on a letterhead. So there's a distinct difference between icons and logos here. Icons are these little squares, these little gems that you often use pixel tools. The process is completely different when you want to create an icon, and you need to consider other things because there's other constraints than when you are creating a logo. This distinction is not very important for the end user. So who cares? Icons and logos are not the same. But you guys are going to be the ones working on the other side of the table. So it's really important that you understand the distinction, and that you know that while logos and icons interchangeably can have some of the same qualities, the actual process and the actual files that you will deliver if someone asks for a logo or someone asks for an icon is quite different. And I'll get more into that because it's a very interesting discussion. And some people, even people in the industry, is always like, "Are you sure?" I'm pretty sure. So if a client comes and casually mentions that he or she wants an app logo, just make sure to correct them. That's your job. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about interface icons first. I'm not going to spend too long on interface icons. That is something we could have an entirely separate presentation about. But as you can probably feel, I really want to talk about app icons today. So let's go right ahead and jump into the interface icons real quick. So let's go a little inception on you here. I bet you never saw this before. A screenshot of Keynote inside a Keynote. That was the best I could come up with. So today, there's a lot of icons in interfaces. And we use them for a lot of various reasons. Some are good, some are maybe not so good. Let's just zoom in on a few of them. That's an icon right up there. I apologize, this is in Danish, but maybe you'll be able to recognize some of it. Another icon up there, and there's another icon here. And, on top here, a lot of icons are often used together with labels, text labels. So the icon doesn't stand alone. It doesn't have to communicate the entire message. It more serves as sort of a visual marker, something that you scan for. It's easier to recognize, and often it's for abstract conventions, and you need to learn that thing. You need to learn that thing means share. There's no way that you would, like a child in kindergarten who had never seen an icon before, would know that, oh yeah, that's share. I mean, nobody would know that. So we use some of the times when you use icons without text labels, and you don't actually, it doesn't maybe make sense. It's your job to call out and tell them, that's what we usually call mystery meat, because you have to taste it before you know what it is. You have to click something before you know what it actually does. That is something that we designers really want to avoid in interfaces, because that's just bad, and a bad experience that you don't know what is actually going to happen before you click it. So in icons and interfaces, use them with caution. think about when you're using them and why you're using them. You notice this one doesn't have a text label. Why is that? It's pretty self-evident. I mean, it's a plus. So standard conventions are maybe okay to use, and you guys need to use your sort of your best judgment to figure out when is it something that everybody knows and we don't have to use a text label, and when is it something that might need a little help here. Actually, this one is increasingly being used on its own as well, because in the smartphone world that we live in, people have started learning that means share. But yeah. So when you use them cautiously. Icons in interfaces can really help unclutter an interface. It can be really good as visual markers, and it can help you communicate some things that might be pretty abstract and would have otherwise required quite a lot of processing on the user side if all of them were just text and you had to read everything. But be careful. They can also have the exact opposite effect. So let's talk about app icons. Did I mention that I like app icons? So when I say app icons, again, I am stubbornly referring to application icons on mobile platforms, where at least for the next 30 minutes or so, predominantly iOS. That's sort of my background. There's obviously app icons on other platforms. If you had to place app icon on a fictional scale between something that strictly communicates functionality and something that serves more as a branding sort of element, it would probably be here on the right side of the scale. Interface icons would, most commonly, again, there's some big exceptions to this, but most commonly, try to communicate functionality, serve as visual anchors, as we just saw, where app icons, they take on a completely different job, really. They have a lot of other tasks to solve other than just communicating the message. So it is true that an app icon, while not a logo and not using the logo term, it does have branding associations, and you need to think of it in that way. An app icon represents an entire application. Sum of functionalities, the combined experience of using that app. And it needs to somehow convey the functionality or the essence of the app. And it's really like a multi-sided job. It needs to do all these things. It also needs to serve as a piece of branding. People need to recognize your app icon. They need to understand, it's this type of app, and it can be flat, it can be highly detailed. All these are just styles in our toolboxes, as long as it conveys the intentions of the creator in a confident and appealing way. So now you've worked 8 months on an app, and creating that single piece of graphic that the user will first interact with and judge you on can be pretty nerve-wracking. How exactly does one make a good app icon? What does that even mean, a good app icon? What does it mean? Fear not, I have put together a few slides that will go through just that. So let's just go through a couple of them. One of the most important aspects of an icon is scalability. Because icons is going to be shown several places in the interface, on the platform, it's important that it maintains its uniqueness, its legibility throughout those different sizes. You've seen big icons on the App Store, you've seen small icons on your home screen, you might even seen even smaller icons in the settings pane of your iOS device. Same goes for Android. There's also multiple different types of icon sizes. It's the same icon, but it needs to work and communicate within different restricted sort of sizes. So overly complicated icons that try to cram too much into this canvas often falls victim of bad scalability. Scalability is a really big thing. There's something to say about the consistency between experiencing an app icon and actually opening up that app. So if you guys ever had a really beautiful app icon and you tap it and the app is just nothing like the app icon. It's a completely different experience than what you would have initially thought when you downloaded it. That happens to me a lot. I think part of good app icon, actually, an app icon is the extension of the app. It is sort of the tiny little window that you have out towards the platform that you're using, and you need to make sure that it's consistent and that it makes sense that, of course, it's this app. There are several tools that you can use to help you manage these consistencies and expectations. Something like just keeping the colors in line, making sure that you use the same design language as you used in your interface. Yeah, just make sure that the sign language of the app icon reinforces the experience of using the app. If it makes sense, I like it if the icon can somehow directly or indirectly sort of relate to the main functionality of the app. So if your app is about making stars, I don't know why an app would be about making stars, but it seemed like a good idea at the time that I made this slide. You want to use, maybe it would be a good idea to include a star in your app icon. So that's a very direct relation. There's other types of ways that can affect the app icon. But so somehow, like, make sure that it's a part of the consistency. Make sure that this stuff actually makes sense. Oh yeah, okay, it's an app for reading news, so maybe it's a newspaper, or it's, I like that if it actually makes sense somehow. This almost goes without saying, of course, but try to make something unique. It's okay that you want to mimic a trend or a style, but make it your own. Do something, make a twist. Your app icon is constantly like competing with other icons out there. There's a lot of apps out there, and just standing out can be a perfectly valid argument for a design decision. So, bad qualities of app icons. Obviously, the inverse of everything we just looked at can be said about bad app icons. But let's take a look at a few of my favorites. So, misdirection. Conveying something through your app icon that is completely foreign to actually using the app. That is false advertisement. That is something that doesn't make sense. If your app is a chat app, let's try and work something in that has something to do with that. Let's not show a gorgeously rendered picture of a female or something like that. I mean, false advertisement is everywhere. They're in app icons as well. Let's get rid of it. Let's make something that is fitting and appropriate for your app. I'm not saying make it directly relatable. I'm just saying consider these things when you're putting together your app icon. This is one of my ultimate pet peeves. Using words in app icons is a big no-no. Don't do it. Only in the rarest of occasions is it okay to use words in app icons. I think the logic here is that if you have to retreat to another tool of representation, the written word, you are not really using the full force of your pictorial arsenal here. Words and pictures are two different representational tools that you use to convey meaning. And if you mix them together in something that is supposed to be a picture, a pictorial reference, you get a very unfocused message. You can easily, they scale horribly, obviously. You ever seen like app icons that have like a whole sentence almost in it? They'll scale down. You can't even read what it says on the home screen. So is there really no better way of visualizing your application than with dry words? Whenever I see words in app icons, I feel like the designer sort of missed an opportunity to more clearly convey his or her intentions. Sometimes it might be okay. Because some of you might have seen, so Facebook uses an F, that's a letter, and if you're using something that in it by itself can become iconic, so maybe a single letter or a few letters that somehow makes sense, I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying, don't have best app written all over it. There's really no need for this. There's really no need to, I see a lot of, and I'm sure that it's clients who insisted on having their logo or their company name or whatever, at least not on the iOS platform. There's not a lot of places where your icon will be shown without a text label that says the name of the app. So somebody who writes, if this app was in fact named the best app, no reason to write it here. It'll actually be accompanied with a text label in the App Store and on your home screen that says Best App. Just make a kick-ass icon instead. Don't half-ass it. So many icons on the App Store and on Google Play features bland, boring, and unopinionated design. Your app icon is like the first stop a user will make in your universe. It is the doorway to the house that you have built. It should not be an afterthought. It should be a working part of the process. It should have grown with the home that you've been working on. It's such a vital part of the entire experience, the whole software solution, really. And it is the strongest connection that you will make with your user. It is what they'll first see when they initially meet your app. And it is what they will interact with every day when they use your app or every time they use your app. It is what they will think of when they think of your app. It anything short of a well thought out, fitting and appealing app icon is just a failure really to communicate clearly what your app is all about and make it a success. So let's just jump in really quick and look at all the original work that's being done in the productivity genre. Yes, this is what I'm talking about. Fix it, make it better, it's your job. You can go out, you can make something. I mean, all of these apps, they can't all be about the same thing. I mean, rethink it. You have this entire space to make something awesome. Then I figured I'd kind of end up with a slide called "How do I become an icon designer?" It's a tricky thing, I guess, and I thought we'd maybe talk a little bit. I'll talk a little bit, and then you guys can ask some questions if you like. You want to make icons. Icons is fun. Icons is the best thing ever. It's one of the funniest design disciplines that you can work on as a designer because of all of the things I've mentioned today. So if you want to steer your work towards making more icons, there is one magical trick to it that a lot of people, they don't realize. And I'm not sure you can guess it, but it's making icons. So, and this fact escapes a lot of people. So what you need to consider is that when you're working on a project, you essentially become what you are working on. So if you are currently, if any of you guys are freelancing, what you need to consider is if you're doing a project that you don't think is very inspiring, the client might be a bad client, or the creative work is just not that interesting, you will probably, what you're actually doing is you're fostering more of that type of work. So when you're done with that shitty project, you're like, oh, thank God I'm done with the horrible project. Now I'm going to go on and work on something awesome. The thing is, you get more shitty work because the work that you're doing is the work that other people are seeing. If I'm working on a project that I'm not very impressed with and I display it on my portfolio, I'll just get more of that type of work. If I work on something that I think is really awesome, like making icons. If I work on a couple of icons, people will see the icons and they're like, oh yeah, well, I need an icon. So in a sense, you become what you work on. And that's, I think that's something that a lot of people, that escapes a lot of people. They think, the good projects are just around the corner. And usually they aren't. I mean, you have to somehow make them happen yourself. And maybe you can't go out and get, awesome icon projects to begin with, but then do something that you think is fun with icons. Make your own icons, make them for free, redesign of an icon. Maybe you have an app that you like to use, but you think the icon could use some work. Redraw that or make your own sort of fun projects like I did with the Star Wars app icons. Set up your own constraints and make a fun project, present them to the world, and you will get more work of that type. That is how it works. There is no magic to it. You get good by doing it a lot, and if you do it a lot, someone will eventually pay you money to do it. That is how it works. Thank you for listening. Thanks.
And the world's gonna know that my black